Ms. Cober, is there anything you wish to see?
I would.
Yes.
I wrote it out, so I wouldn't forget. I'm sorry. Just a moment.
Take your time.
I've always been an animal lover, an empath, and didn't give myself to anyone or anything. I started my rescue to help save the animals that humans had failed. I was a Fox 17 Person of the Year in 2016 for starting a program in my hometown for kids in high school that lacked the basic needs: clothing, food, backpacks, etc. I also helped start that same program in several other schools all over the state. I'm the kind of person who would stop a vehicle to remove an injured duck on a highway just so it would not continue to suffer, move a turtle off the side of the road to ensure it makes it to safety, and stop traffic to help a chihuahua that had gotten out of a fence so it didn't get hit by a car. Now I'm here today because I had too many dogs in my home. I got in over my head without even realizing it, which unfortunately in rescue is extremely easy to do. As Mr. Head has pointed out, I had 1,400 animals that I was able to place in loving homes. Although I would say that I have saved even more than that. In rescue, when you save them from the shelter, you're not only saving the one you're taking out of the shelter, you're saving the one that you're making space to come in. If you save one off the street, you end up saving hundreds, if not thousands, by removing at least one unaltered animal off the streets. Taking an owner surrender is helping keep the shelters and humane societies free for an additional stray rather than those owner surrenders. Not only are we saving the lives of the animals, but we are also saving the lives of the families and humans that adopt them. I know the animals have saved me more than a time or two as well, especially my service dogs. I knew I was overwhelmed, and I had called and emailed and inquired to every shelter and humane society that I worked with in the past, and they said that, and this was prior to the illness that hit my home in 2013, to assist in helping moving a lot of the long-term fosters, hoping that maybe someone bigger than me had more of a following and could get them into homes. Unfortunately, there was no help. I was alone, and I was struggling to make it all work, with too many dogs, not enough sleep, and too much work for just me to do. I also had the inability to say no to taking new ones because I knew that I could help save them. I was a small rescue, and maybe with the help of some of the larger humane societies and animal controls, that these dogs would have a chance at a home. Unfortunately, they were just as full as I was and were unable to take them. I did admit I got overwhelmed with the amount of animals, but I would never abuse, neglect, or torture them in any way. All I wanted to do was save them. Even with the daunting email of maybe I should just euthanize all of them, I couldn't do that. That went against everything that I stood for. Prior to the illness, I was able to spend hours with the dogs, playing, socializing, taking care of them, and cleaning. I said from the very beginning I had too many dogs, and what you have seen on TV or heard through social media is a small snippet of what the real story was. They only saw it at its worst. As previously stated, there were police officers at my home. There were never any concerns with the cleanliness until this illness. I can tell you that this past year has been extremely difficult. This whole thing took my service dogs, my passion, pretty much my life. But since I have found a new world that I was not enjoying, I can tell you that those first people who originally contacted me after all this happened asking me to help take in their dogs or find them homes, I had to say no to. It was extremely difficult, but it was a step in the right direction, if you were to ask me. Once the first no was said, it was easier to say no again. It was quite an eye-opening experience, to say the least, something I had never experienced. I can tell you and promise I'm never getting back into rescue, running a rescue, or fostering. I know that there are other ways to help other than doing it myself. Networking, coordinating, educating, and spreading the word of low-cost clinics and spay and neuters. There are so many things I would have done different, so many different choices would have been made, but again, hindsight is 20/20. I know I messed up by taking on too many dogs and too much for a single person to do alone. When the dogs were taken, I will pride myself on the fact that not one of them were heartworm positive, because I had already paid and treated them for it. And actually, I'm still paying on it. Most of the dogs were fixed. All of the dogs were up to date on vaccinations, all because of my doing. Paying for medical bills when the forfeiture happened. All but a handful of dogs were adopted, mostly by fosters who were caring for them. The shelters got those adoption fees, which originally I had planned for my medical bills for the dogs. I am the one that paid for their sterilizations, microchips, heartworm treatment, vaccinations, and prevention. I am pleading you take all of this into account. I beg you take into account that if I was taking in a dog to be malicious or cool, would I have really spent thousands of dollars on their medical care? Would I still be paying off those debts that were incurred when I was doing rescue? That money from adoptions and my pocket were what was paying for them. When considering my sentence, I ask that you take a few things into account. If there was someone standing next to me who purposely tortured, beat, starved, and potentially killed even a handful of dogs, they would be able to live with animals, they would be able to own an animal, and they would be facing a misdemeanor. They would not be facing the same sentencing that I am. They would be able to go on with their lives without any hesitation. Again, I ask you to allow me to live with animals. You can have my probation officer come to check the numbers. I'm willing to submit medical records, not necessarily that I own, but somebody else who lives in the home does. Which, by the way, I still have all of the boxes of records of the animals I've helped over the almost last decade. Whatever is needed for your peace of mind. If you choose not to let me own, that's fine. I just thought it wouldn't hurt to ask. My crime was caring too much and not being able to say no to help. As Mr. Hedges pointed out, saying no meant a death sentence, and one yes led to another. I have done a lot of self-reflection, self-improvement, and unbeknownst to Mr. Hedges, I have already sought advice and counseling from someone. I know that walking a thin line of having too many dogs was being helpful and part of the problem. Something I never wanted to do. Something I never want to do again. If allowed to own or live with animals, please know that they would be spoiled and loved within the limits of the ordinance. I have paid an extreme price already, not only monetary, but emotionally, mentally, physically, and psychologically. Thank you for letting me speak.